Welcome to Big Little Live in partnership with Buick. I'm Amanda Dobbins from The Ringer. This is Mina from ESPN. We're here to talk about season 2 of Big Little Lies. This is The Ringer's Big Little Lies after show. We are going to be here every week after the East Coast airing of Big Little Lies. We will be breaking down the episode. We'll be talking about the characters. We'll be talking about the mystery. We will, of course, be talking about Meryl Streep, who was on season 2 in case you haven't heard. We are also going to be on Twitter throughout the season at #BigLittleLive. We would love to hear from you if you have questions, theories, suggestions. Please hit us up. Again, that's #BigLittleLive. And we're just very excited to be here. Mina, this is a season 2 after show, but you may have noticed that season 2 has not started yet. It starts this Sunday.
We are previewing.
Yes, exactly. And it's somewhat of a necessary preview because maybe you forgot, season 1 aired in February of 2017.
Yes. Feels like a million years ago. And also, this is a very complicated show.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like Thrones complicated. There are 0.2% as many characters. But the way those characters, the stories intersected,
yes,
the drama, the mystery, the many mystery, the many lies, it's kind of hard to unpack.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap, and I found when I was doing my rewatch that I was like a little bit rustier than maybe I wanted to be. So we thought, you know, before we get into the other preview, that we would just do some basic where we left off. And I think you isolated an important part. This is a mystery show. It was a whodunit. We started episode 1. We knew that someone had died. They tell you that pretty quickly, but you don't know who and you don't know how. And you don't totally know why. And the first season, among other dramas, which we'll recap, but it is primarily about that arc of who died and why. And we find out at the very end of season 1. Would you like to share who died?
Spoiler alert. It was Alexander Skarsgård's character, Perry. There's a second mystery that springs up early in the show, which is Jane, who's played by Shailene Woodley. Her son was born. We don't know who his father is, who her rapist was. We also learn in the final episode that it is the same character, Perry.
Yes. And already just in the 2 sentences that you just said, this show sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. And the other appeal of the show is that it handles a lot of these issues with nuance. It is a show that involves domestic violence, specifically Nicole Kidman's character, Celeste, who is dealing with her husband, Perry, throughout the season. And in many ways, season 1 is about her arc to understand and to know what to do in a very difficult situation. It is also about Jane dealing with the trauma of, once again, her rape from Perry, the same guy, Alexander Skarsgård. And it is also about Jane as the newcomer in town, and she shows up and her son Ziggy is immediately accused of bullying, which sets her at odds with the other people, which is how we can bring in the other 2 characters.
Renata, who is the mother of the girl who accuses.
It sounds ridiculous when you're describing it like this, but it's not, and it's wonderful. What a great show, an important show.
That's what struck me upon rewatching it the second time to prepare for this. Is it's so soapy, and it's kind of ridiculous that all of these threads come together. Obviously, that Jane ends up in the same town where her rapist happens to live, and oh, by the way, you know, he's murdered at the end. But it's so well written, and the acting is so good. It's like getting your steak and your vegetables too. Like, it's the best soap opera ever made.
I completely agree. And the end is very soapy. Just to get back to that very basic question of where we left off. At almost the very end of the finale of season 1, Perry, who is the person who dies, confronts his wife, Celeste, played by Nicole Kidman, and her other friends, -1, but he gets in a fight with them, and there's this struggle, and it's very upsetting to watch, very violent. And then at the very end, Bonnie, played by Zoe Kravitz, comes and shoves Perry, and then we learn that Perry has died.
Yes.
And so we know who died, and we know why he died, and we know how he died. And then, in the very end of the episode, it becomes clear that these women are going to keep the secret of how he died and play it off as an accident. And there you have your setup for season 2, which is, can they keep this secret and what is it going to cost them to keep this secret?
Right. The crime already happened. Now it's about the cover-up.
Right.
And it's also about the characters, right? Because we still have many questions about not only what the loose ends are and how they're going to cope and handle, you know, what happens afterwards, but how they got there in the first place. Some of those characters were more fleshed out than others. And I think I'd like to see those characters this season like tell a little bit more of their stories.
Yes, and that's absolutely going to be a central part of season 2, which is kind of the whys and how everyone got here. I think the other question is, are they going to get caught? And the very last shot of season 1 is these women on a beach together, kind of sharing in their secret and, you know, their friendship. And there's a lens around it that looks like it's a pair of binoculars. And it's pretty clear that it is one of the local detectives who maybe doesn't believe everything that she has been told.
She says, I don't believe anything. She's like, they're lying. I don't know why they're lying. I don't know why they didn't just say it was self-defense, but they're lying. Now that we know, however, that Meryl Streep is in this season, that she's Perry's mother, it choose to believe that she was watching everything with binoculars the whole time.
Oh, you think it was Meryl?
No, I don't. I just choose to believe it.
We will find out. We're going to get into more of that. I wanted to do something on this preview that we're going to do throughout the season that's called the Monterey Top 5. And it is taken its name after the Monterey Five, who are the main characters. That's what they call themselves in the season 2 trailer. And we're just going to go through the season character by character. And we're going to talk about what we know about that character and also maybe what we don't know about that character or what we would like to find out in season 2. And Mina, I think it probably makes the most sense to start our Monterey Top 5 with Celeste.
The tragedy of the first season.
Yeah, and she is in many ways, she's the emotional heart of the show, as well as by the end, the plot, like heart of the show. Everything kind of comes together through her, her house. So Celeste is obviously played by Nicole Kidman. Do you want to start? Like, what do we know about Celeste? What are your thoughts on Celeste?
Well, I said the tragedy of the season because this is a show that contains multitudes. Like, it's a hilarious show. I think that's what struck me upon rewatching is how funny it is. Like, Reese Witherspoon's character, Madeline, not gonna say Reese Witherspoon, and Renata have so many amazing comedic moments. Celeste is not really granted those moments. She has a truly heartbreaking, heart-wrenching performance. Her story is one of a woman coming to terms, I think, with her relationship and what it means and how she got to this point. And it's a story of abuse, and ultimately, it's not really one of healing yet. So we don't know how she is going to reckon with what happened. We don't know, I think, what she's going to do about the fact that Perry was also the father of Ziggy, Jane's kid. So there's a lot of loose ends when it comes to Celeste.
Yeah, I think it's really well put that we haven't seen the healing yet, and that is going to need to be a major part of season 2. I think what season 1 did really well with Celeste and with Nicole Kidman's performance, we should say she won the Emmy for Best Actress in a limited series for this, and she beat Reese Witherspoon, which is sad, but it's fine. I'm going to get past it. But it's a tremendous performance because in large part, over the course of the season, she is working through the realization and the understanding of her own marriage and her life and her relationship to herself and to love as the audience is.
Yes.
And you watch her come to understand or work through it. She also goes to a lot of therapy, and the therapy scenes are really harrowing.
Intense.
Yeah. And they're in the season 2 trailer, so we know that she will be going back to that therapist. I'm curious, do you think that she'll be happy to see that therapist?
The therapist is this pivotal character because she sort of crosses the line from being a therapist to being like an advocate. She tells her what to do in terms of like giving her advice on actually leaving her husband and finding safety and what that takes, which is really interesting, I think. It's not something I've seen on television before in terms of the portrayal of domestic violence and some of the like logistics of that, perhaps. So I don't know if she's going to be, I think they showed a therapist in the trailer.
Therapist.
It's the same therapist.
New hairdo,
Okay, new hairdo.
New hairdo, same therapist.
She's obviously pivotal, but you know, she plays a role also in Celeste kind of figuring out, I guess, the way the domestic violence is presented at the beginning is very different from how it's presented at the end. In the beginning, it's tied to their sex life and passion, and Celeste blames herself, or she at least, you know, impugns herself in the violence that occurs in their relationship. And I think by the end, especially once she realizes that, oh wait, Perry didn't just commit violence towards me. This is about him, and it, you know, obviously occurred with Jane as well. That it's not about our relationship; it's about one man and his sickness.
Yes, I think that sets up both what we don't know about Celeste, which you've already explained how she's going to handle all of this. There's a lot to handle, and it's also a great segue into Jane, who is intertwined in this. So we're doing the Monterey Top 5. We're going through the season character by character. We just did Celeste, who's played by Nicole Kidman, and Jane is played by Shailene Woodley. And Jane is the newcomer. In a lot of ways, she's the audience surrogate because she is seeing all of these people as we would see them and is perhaps taken aback by their pettiness and the extraness of certain aspects of this. We'll talk more about that when we talk about Madeline. But Jane also comes to Monterey because she is escaping some violence and trauma of her own. And she was raped and she has a son as a result of that encounter. She does not know the name of her rapist throughout the season, and she is clearly still working through her own issues throughout the season.
Yeah, whereas Celeste hasn't even begun that sort of healing process or, reckoning. Jane's already, I think, fully in it, and we kind of see that take place over the course of the season. She is the audience surrogate, partially because she's the only person on the show dresses like a normal person, right? She's like...
Okay, we can revisit that. Normal, yes, I wish that she would get a second pair of shoes.
Yes. Yeah. Also, the trailer, the bangs, it's not a good situation.
Yeah, okay.
I think I gave her more credit upon second viewing, I guess. In the first season, she kind of struck me as a bit unremarkable. She really is, I think, a plot engine as much as a character in the first season, and she's constantly kind of under attack and dealing, whether it's her son being accused of being a bully or trying to figure out, as you said, who his father is. She's doing these things, all these things are happening to her, but she's not really as developed as a character, maybe.
Yeah, it's funny. I had the same reaction on rewatch. My primary memory of Jane, in addition to the plot engine aspects, which we should talk more about Ziggy, was just her running. They just show her running so much. That was just like the only plot development is Jane running on a beach. And that's a little unfair. My memory is unfair. I think Shailene Woodley is doing a more nuanced performance upon second viewing. And she's also got a lot to deal with because in addition to kind of Jane's trauma, she's also being bullied by all the moms at school, except for one. And to explain that plot briefly, on the first day, in an act of just terrible teaching. I don't have children and I'm not a teacher, but I'm still really aware that this is not how it should go at school. On her son's first day at Otter Bay Elementary, real name, he's accused of biting another child.
Yes.
And he says he didn't do it, and none of the parents or really, the teachers kind of believe him. We'll talk more about, I have some thoughts about the teachers.
The teacher is terrible. Okay, in this year, I assume the kids are older and she won't be the teacher anymore. Her way of resolving it is to hold like a public hearing and have Amabella, speaking of ridiculous names, Renata's child, point at her bully in the crowd, who we later realize is not actually the bully.
Right, and Ziggy maintains his innocence throughout, and Jane maintains his innocence throughout, which pits her against just a tremendous character. Should we talk about Renata?
My favorite.
Yeah, let's just go ahead. We'll move to Renata.
Okay.
Who is your favorite? Would you like to speak on Renata?
It kind of feels like Renata was engineered for Laura Dern's stands because she's such an internet character. Like she's so memeable and hilarious, and like Madeline, she does provide a lot of the comedy in the show. She is the CEO, Silicon Valley mom. Her and her husband Gordon live in this palace by the ocean, Gordon is also my other favorite character, by the way, of the tinted lenses. No, she's ridiculous, right? And yes, she kind of enters, she's beefing with Madeline, who she calls Madeline, which is an all-time petty move. And a lot of the beef is based on this initial accusation of bullying.
Right. And so we should just say that she and Jane resolve their beef by the end of the episode, in part because it is revealed that it is not Ziggy who is the bully, but it is Max, one of Celeste's sons. It's a really tangled web we weave situation here. We should get like one of the family charts. Yeah. So Renata is now on the Monterey 5's side, at least for now.
Yes.
And she is a part of Perry's death. She is there, she's a witness, she is fighting him off as well. So she's very quickly brought into the group.
Right.
And I think what we don't know is whether she will stay in the group.
Right, especially because her and Madeline are, that's betraying my siding with Renata on the issue. They're natural enemies. And
exactly.
They're natural enemies because they both are the type of people who like to have enemies, I think, but also because Renata is this CEO, this powerful woman, and with Madeline, I think there's some tension and guilt over the fact that she's not working or did not pursue her career. And that's sort of another, I think, a sort of secondary plot in the first season with all of these women is how, whether they're in the workforce, how they feel about being or not being in the workforce.
Right.
It's kind of an issue with all of them. With Celeste, it's a matter of autonomy, control, life or death, the fact that she isn't working. We don't really talk about that. She used to be a powerful lawyer. With Renata, it's more of a source of humor.
Yes, and you were talking a lot about Madeline's struggle as well, which is I think we can't go any further. I personally cannot go any further without talking about Madeline, who is played by Reese Witherspoon, who is my favorite. The things to know about Madeline, she is the town busybody. I think she starts season 1, it's iconic, by just parking the car and just inserting herself in another car's business. Like there is some sort of traffic incident and then suddenly Madeline needs to be a part of it.
Yes.
She is also, she takes Jane's side very early, and that's important because that sets her up against Renata, the conflict that you mentioned, that they're kind of all, and Celeste is on their side mostly. I think Celeste would really rather not be dealing with the extra drama.
I don't think so.
But she is a very loyal friend to Madeline.
Yes, Madeline and Celeste are best friends. We don't know how they become best friends, but that's sort of set up at the beginning. In this accident, Madeline also breaks her heel, which sets up this like incredible, I mean, the physical comedy of that character as she's hobbling around in the first episode, it's such a tour de force for Reese Witherspoon, who also the moment where she pukes later.
My favorite.
You know, in the season, she has all of these great, hilarious comedic moments. But yes, you're right, she's adversaries with Renata and she befriends Jane, and it's kind of funny because, as you mentioned, she's a huge busybody and she starts interjecting herself in the life of Jane while also failing to notice that her best friend, Celeste, is, you know, having this major drama, this dangerous situation at home, or that her own daughter is auctioning herself on the internet, but she's laser focused on her new friend. In
her defense, she has some stuff going on in her personal life. Well, 2 things, actually. Number 1, she's a patron of the theater. Please do not forget Madeline's commitment to the community theater and their production of Avenue Q, which is another, as you said, she is often the comic relief. And this plot where she is really dedicated to making sure that Monterey allows a production of Avenue Q with puppets doing things that I will not say on this show. But not only is she really committed to the community theater, perhaps she's so committed to the community theater that she also had an affair with the director. Yeah, and that is not a well-kept secret. It actually seems like it was a well-kept secret for a year, and then in the course of the show, it becomes increasingly clear to everyone, and eventually, most importantly, to her husband, Ed, that this affair happened. Well, he never says that he knows or anything. It's you read it into his performance, the way he looks at her, the way he looks at Joseph. And yes, that's, you know, when we talked earlier about what are the mysteries or the tensions or the lies that'll be exposed this season, this feels like a ticking time bomb. The fact that she had this affair. Unlike Celeste, Madeline seems a little bit less concerned with how she's perceived in the community, perhaps, but she's very afraid of this disrupting her marriage and breaking it. Yeah, I think what's interesting and what makes this a great Reese Witherspoon performance is that she's outwardly does not care what anyone thinks and spends a lot of time on the inside being very concerned about what everyone thinks about her. She's a perfectionist, she is a busybody, and she can like put out a lot, but she also like maybe can't take the criticism that she dishes out in the world, and so it's an interesting tension, and certainly is going to be a problem in season 2 because it definitely seems like Ed is up to something. And it, you know, she's also now in a really interesting point between Celeste and Jane. Yeah. And we don't know that Celeste and Jane are adversaries. In fact, at the end of season 1, they show Perry's funeral, and they show a moment between Celeste and Jane that seems to, I mean, there's no dialogue, but it seems to be affectionate. Yeah. But I think that's a lot to work out between the 2 of them. And then if you're the person who brought them together, it's an interesting side. And I wouldn't say that Madeline has handled being in the middle with grace thus far. Yes, but we don't actually know who knows what as it pertains to Perry being Ziggy's father. I mean, there's this moment at the end when they're having the fight and they're trying to fight him up, when he approaches and they all kind of look at each other and make eye contact. And I think as the audience, we're supposed to read that as a moment of like a realization, and they all have this epiphany at once. I find that a little unrealistic. I'm gonna say that they linger on a while. It's a real soap opera moment of like they're looking and then they're looking at each other and everyone and the camera lingers, and you know, and it's in the midst of this like extremely horrific violence and threatening behavior. So but I do think they don't dwell on it, but I think you're supposed to understand.
That at least maybe Madeline, Celeste, and Jane know the secret.
Yes.
I don't know about like Renata, for example, or Bonnie, that they necessarily picked up on the fact that, as you said, it is a little bit awkward that these two women just found out that one of their sons was fathered by the rapist/abuser who they just killed.
Is there any way to say it that doesn't sound ridiculous? The triumph of the show actually is that when you're watching it, it does not sound
totally realistic,
as ridiculous. I mean, it's not totally ridiculous.
Yes, I mean, this is the most well-written soap opera ever made, basically.
Yeah, and it has real thought, and they're exploring the feelings and the motivations along with the humor and also the slightly ridiculous plot elements.
Yes.
So we're doing the Monterey Top 5. This is Big Little Live in partnership with Buick, and we are going through season 1, character by character. We've done 4 of the 5. We saved Bonnie for last because season 1 also saved Bonnie for last. And we have been doing what we know and what we don't know about characters, and what we know about Bonnie is pretty slim. Bonnie is played by Zoe Kravitz, and Zoe Kravitz is wonderful, and no shots to Zoe Kravitz's performances. This show did not really spend as much time with the character.
I mean, what is she really wonder? Zoe Kravitz is great. I used to see her walking around Williamsburg with Penn Badgley. I think they were dating at the time.
Sounds right.
Very small people. It's not her fault, though. You're right. The character is very flat. We don't know anything about her, basically. She's kind of one note. She seems... You know the cool girl from Gone Girl, that sort of archetype of this girl who's like genetically engineered just to annoy other women? That's who Bonnie is in the first season. Even the way she dresses, it's like the stuff you see at the Anthropology sales rack, and you're like, nobody would ever buy that. And then she saunters in looking like perfect and awesome. Very annoying. Shows up at the end, sings like an angel, but then ultimately is the one who pushes Perry.
Can I read the notes I made for what we know about Bonnie?
Sure.
Here's where we go. Number 1, the wife of Madeline's ex-husband. I don't know if we said that. That's important. She is married to Madeline's ex-husband, Nathan.
Who sucks.
Yes, exactly. So, number 2, leads impressive-looking fitness classes. I really don't know what type of fitness they're doing. It seems like yoga, but active yoga. There's music. Yoga. Yeah, I'm sure someone will let us know. 3, good at karaoke, which she is. She sings Don't, the Elvis Presley song, because it's an Elvis and Audrey-themed benefit night. Number 4, pushed Perry to his death. That's it. That is the sum total of what we know. So I think the real challenge for season 2 is going to be developing Bonnie as a character and kind of earning that moment and helping us understand. I mean, some of it is just that she does seem to be a good person, and they characterize her as like socially conscious, and she is, I don't think she's actually helping Abigail, Madeline's daughter, auction off her. Okay, right. You and Madeline agree. Abigail, Madeline's daughter, attempts to auction off her virginity to benefit Amnesty International, just like normal things that you do on a TV show. And I don't think Bonnie's helping her, but Bonnie isn't like...
She's not stopping her.
She's not stopping her, exactly. Nor is Nathan, frankly. Nathan is responsible for that. He's the parent. Anyway.
He's the worst.
So some of it, when you see someone in danger, you know, you would help someone. But it does feel like Bonnie being... technically, in the legal sense, the person responsible for Perry's death, it was a bit sudden.
It was sudden. I have heard that in the book there's a little bit of a backstory with Bonnie and perhaps a history of violence that we do not get in the TV show. There is the moment where she sees Perry and Celeste or Perry pursuing Celeste, and they kind of show her like eyes as though she's somebody who might be more attuned to the dynamics of a relationship like that, and she follows him, but again, we don't. That's all just
She is observing other people rather than being wrapped up in her own petty dramas, which petty dramas is the theme of this show, so who can blame them?
But the fact that she is the one who kills him is important because, as the cops discuss at the end, they don't understand why, if Celeste's character, who's a lawyer and would know that she's capable of doing this, was the one who pushed him, she didn't claim self-defense. Well, she didn't do it, right? So they are all essentially covering for Bonnie at the end.
Yes, and I think one of the main questions of season 2 is, how long will they be able to cover for Bonnie? Especially with the entrance of one Meryl Streep. Let's do Detective Meryl. We call this Detective Meryl because Meryl Streep is playing Perry's mother, who maybe doesn't believe the given reason for his death and is asking some questions. And we're also calling it Detective Meryl because we like props. I have one too. Yeah, here we go. So let's just start with this. It's a really big deal that Meryl Streep is on the show. It's like a huge deal.
Never done television before.
You know, I was looking at her IMDb, and I think that she's like done an episode of The Simpsons.
It doesn't count.
This
never had a television role because
Exactly.
Meryl Streep came up through the theater. She went to Yale School of Drama, and she didn't have her breakout role until Deer Hunter when she was in her late 20s.
Right,
so she had this is not obviously the path that many actors and actresses, I guess Lupita Nyong'o also came up through Yale School of Drama. But in any case, she didn't do TV. She became a movie star right away at a moment when people used to be able to do that, and has been a movie star for decades.
Yes.
So the fact that she decided to do this show as her first television show is remarkable.
And in many ways, it seems like they did season 2 just to get Meryl Streep. I wonder if season 2 would be happening without Meryl. I'm glad that we don't have to find out, because it does add like a certain excitement. But yeah, as you said, it's a really big deal. Movie stars don't typically, or they haven't for a long time. It's become more and more common for movie stars to do TV like this. And actually, one of the shows that like kind of made it common and established this trajectory was Big Little Lies season 1, because you've got Reese Witherspoon, you know, Oscar-winning actress. You've got Nicole Kidman, Oscar-winning actress. You've got Laura Dern, Shailene Woodley, Zoe Kravitz. Those are big names.
Yes, it's a lot of hard work.
And I think that was part of the reason that it was such a big deal. But then you throw Meryl in the mix.
It's the most star-studded cast
Yeah.
ever to hit television. Do you think that that's telling of like the zeitgeist or trends and the fact, obviously there have been many pieces written probably on the website affiliated with the show about television being where prestige is going, where quality, not just acting, but writing and directing and budgets and that sort of thing. There's that, I think.
Yes.
There's also, and you would know more about this than me, the fact that there aren't really movie stars anymore.
Yeah, it's
you know
an
what
interesting
I mean?
convergence of things.
Right.
Number one, it's just there are franchises at the movies, and so you go to a movie to see like Batman and not to see Ben Affleck, who's playing Batman. I mean, maybe you want to see Ben Affleck, but you get it. And then there is also TV. There's just an explosion in how much TV is being made, so you need higher quality.
That's true, right?
You know, there are more opportunities for people, and I think that's specifically true for women, and particularly women over the age of 30. And I think that that was a real draw. Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman were both producers on the first season as well, and kind of getting to create their own project and getting to do roles that you maybe don't see. You certainly don't see the movies that frequently, or on TV. You know, this is pretty notable, and we'll talk more about why. But
yeah, I would also say, whether the hashtag is hashtag Big Little Live.
yes,
Per that, Meryl's probably gonna be trending on Twitter, right? Which is not why she's doing this show. Meryl Streep does not need to trend on Twitter. Hashtag Big Little Live, Meryl, if you're watching. But TV stars now, actors and actresses and characters on TV shows and TV shows themselves are more likely to exist in the world of social media and be part of the quote-unquote conversation in a way that movies are not, which I think provides added incentive to these actors and actresses to be kind of relevant these days.
Absolutely. I think that that's spot on. I don't think Meryl is doing this to be a meme, but I think Meryl Streep is like definitely going to be a meme as soon as she's going to be on screen, and we're going to talk about it.
Teeth.
I want to talk a little bit about what she's going to be doing on the show before we move on. So as I said, she's playing Perry's mother.
Yes.
Here's a fun fact for you. I didn't know this. Her character's name is Mary Louise Wright. Did you know that Mary Louise is Meryl Streep's legal name?
Really?
Apparently. That's where they got it. Yeah.
So they're using her real, no, that feels like something.
Exactly.
She's also wearing fake teeth, which is why I just screamed teeth 30 seconds ago for no reason. They're not, like on a scale of 0 through Rami Malek and Bohemian Rhapsody, they're probably towards 0. They're not that offensive, but they are fake.
You gotta do something to get into character, I guess, even if you're Meryl Streep.
Yeah, doesn't take much.
And so essentially we think season 2 will be Meryl versus the Monterey Five. Which is just incredible. God bless the person who thought of pitting Meryl Streep against Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman. That is great.
What an incredible villain.
I know.
I mean, we're assuming, she could come and be like, hey, I love you guys. Yeah, you killed my son, that's great. But probably not. Probably she's gonna be an adversary, and I cannot think of a more formidable person to be their adversary.
I'm very excited. Again, so we are at hashtag Big Little Live, as Mina noted, and if you would like to send us memes or Meryl comments of your own, please do. I want to talk a little bit about the first season just kind of as a phenomenon. It was a really big deal, the first season. Not just because it had famous actresses, also, although that was certainly part of it. Won a ton of Emmys. It won Best Limited Series, because back when it was only supposed to be one season, it could run in limited series. Kind of like Emmy cheating after the fact.
I was gonna say, why don't more shows do that?
Well, I
Sneak
think,
into that category.
I would not be surprised if it happened some more. But and also Nicole Kidman won, Laura Dern won, Alexander Skarsgård, who plays Perry, won as well. was also just kind of a big deal. I think in part because we don't get that many shows like this where you get a giant female, like heavy-hitting ensemble. Yeah.
You're right. It is remarkable. Like before, when we were talking about the show and planning it, I was talking about how actually it's pretty rare to see two guys talking to each other on this show.
Right.
The Beck-Dude test is what I proposed. And the male characters are much flatter, or, I mean, Ed's not flat, but, you know, they're not like as well developed and interesting and fascinating. They don't engage with each other the way, not just two female characters, but four, sorry, Bonnie, dude, in the first season. It's really unusual.
Yeah, and you know, it's really well made. You don't get that many prestige shows featuring that many women. This show was written by David E. Kelley, who is a TV legend. It was directed by Jean-Marc Vallée, who is an accomplished film director. And it, you know, it looks beautiful. It is really well made, even though it's kind of soapy stuff. Yes. And it's notable when you get this many women in a project of this level.
What are some other examples like of entirely female ensemble shows?
And you know, Sex and the City is like the really obvious example because you also have the HBO comparison and Girls. But like I was honestly thinking, remember Golden Girls?
Golden Girls,
you know?
yes.
And you know, like more recently Girls, Orange is the New Black, even Insecure, which is also on HBO. So it's not a rarity, but the Bold Type,
my favorite teen show.
We love the Bold Type.
Watch the Bold Type.
We love Big Little Lies and also the Bold Type.
You're right, though. Yes, very few examples. And it is funny because I think also when we were playing this show, like Sex and the City, or even like, I don't know, when you grow up with like the Babysitter's Club or Little Women, you tend to say, which character are you? When you have like a group of women like this. She's Madeline, I'm Renata.
It's so obvious.
Bonnie.
There's like no reason in even fighting it. Wait, Renata /
Bonnie?
Okay.
I don't know, because I feel like I'm not full Renata.
I think that you would be great at exercise classes. I've never been to you with one, but I'm sure you would be fun.
I don't want to say like I have a second wife vibe, because this is gonna go off the rails. All right.
No, it's good. The other thing that I want to talk about in the relationship to this show, and you pointed it out when we were planning, is that it is a show that is going past its source material.
Yeah.
And we have some recent examples of that perhaps didn't turn out the way that we wanted. Do you want to? I don't even think we need to dwell about it. It is Game of Thrones obviously went past its source material, and there was a lot of conversation about that. There have also been some other recent examples. Handmaid's Tale, which is starting soon. Yeah, it's going way past its source material. And also Orange is the New Black, which I forgot was a book. So it happens.
Still on. Wow. Thrones, I think, is actually instructive. I promises we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about Game of Thrones, but what I perceived to be the conversation about sort of some of the flaws with the fact when it went beyond the source material was that the end game was pre-written and they just had to get there, right? That's how it was made. This show, there's no, yes, they're going past the book, but there's no end game. It could go in any kind of direction. I do think that makes it a little bit easier, you know, in terms of writing this second season.
Yeah. I'm going to make the argument that it's a great thing. I kind of think that this is the most necessary sequel in history. Because the first season ends so abruptly. I mean, I really enjoyed it, but this really like violent, traumatic event happens.
Yes.
It becomes clear that they're going to keep a secret, which is that plausible? I don't know. I think we have a whole season to explore why it's not. And then there is that one scene on the beach where they're all friends. And that even, I mean, I'm glad they're all friends. Friendship is great. Beach trips are great. But it's very quick. And I think I understand what the second season is going to be about so quickly because there are so many unresolved questions.
And I think the mystery, I agree with you that the second season is necessary, that the first season did end really abruptly. The mystery is not just, you know, were they able to cover it up?
Right.
Though
that is a relevant question.
Yes, it's not just kind of the, you know, what, but also the why, I think, with these, because there's so many questions with these characters. Yeah. It's not just the question of, does Bonnie have any personality traits other than hemp? That's her personality is hemp. But also, you know, like, who was Celeste before all this happened? They give us fleeting glimpses of her, you know, when she's in the mayor's office, being a lawyer and
defending Avenue
being
Q, as one does.
Awesome at it, and then they allude to kind of, you know, her anxieties and getting pregnant, and how did a woman like this end up with Perry? I mean, it's a fascinating character that has yet to be fleshed out. I think that's gonna be really fascinating to watch unfold. I mean, really with all of these women, we don't really know how they got to where they are.
I totally agree. I have so many questions after season 1, which is why I think season 2 makes sense. We should also say it's not totally uncharted. The first season was based on a book by Leanne Moriarty, who's a very successful Australian novelist, and she wrote the story that becomes season 2. So it's still from the same people.
That reminds me of a question I wanted to ask you.
Yes, go ahead.
Is Celeste supposed to be Australian in the show?
So that's tricky because it definitely
What
the
is
book,
the accent?
I think the accent is, it's very hard to do very difficult scenes while also maintaining your American accent.
She's supposed to be American?
Yes, I think so. It never occurred to me that she was Australian. The book is set in Australia, so maybe she's just doing an homage to Leanne Moriarty and the source material. Maybe she's just like an originalist and really wants to stick to the text while everyone else is doing Monterey. I bet that's it. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to know.
We are going to talk a lot more about season 2 and kind of what to expect. But first, it's time for Real Estate Corner. If you're just joining us, this is Big Little Live in partnership with Buick. And it's my favorite time of the show. It's time for Real Estate Corner! I'm sorry for yelling, but I made us do this segment because I really like talking about fancy houses. I'm also very excited because we have a special guest today. Joining us is my friend, podcast partner, and amateur real estate expert, if you don't mind me saying. It is The Ringer's very own Juliet Littman. Juliet, welcome.
Thank you. So great to be here. Thrilled to be called a real estate expert. Thank you.
Amateur is what she said.
Is that rude?
I'm going to cut that out.
Okay, all right, fair
Let's
enough.
just call it real estate expert.
Juliet, when we have guests, we have wine. We like to
Wonderful.
offer a beverage. You're our first guest, so I just made that rule up, but it's going to be true for the whole show. And we're here because we want to talk about real estate, the houses, the locations, which are a major part of Big Little Lies, kind of more so than they are on a lot of shows. There are people blogging about the real life houses, a lot of interest. And why do you think that is? Why is the real estate so important to this show?
I think part of it is the way it's shot. It's so palatial. Every home seems like it has the highest ceiling you've ever seen. And you can't help but notice like the different dimensions of where they are, and it just becomes a character of the show, really. Like each one is also so distinct and tailored to each woman's vibe and personality and sort of like station in life.
Yeah, they use the homes and the clothes, but really specifically the locations to develop character and to give you a sense of who these people are and how they relate to each other. Because it's a stratified world, Monterey. It's a very small world.
Jane's house is a little different from the other ones.
Yeah.
I mean, this is hard for me because my favorite home is the one that it's very fraught. And that's Perry and Celeste's house.
Yeah.
Just the style of that house. I feel judged right now for
I
choosing that one.
think you're supposed to.
Is that the one I'm supposed?
No.
Wait, no. So I'm basic.
No, you're not. Number one, you're not basic. It's a beautiful home. I think it would go for a lot on Redfin, just from
Sure. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I think I do judge you a little bit for that,
wow.
though. Yeah.
I like the way it's furnished. I like the style of it, but it's hard because all of the scenes of the home are obviously terrifying.
I think you're supposed to, because Celeste is like outwardly perfect, right? Yes. That's how she starts the season, and they kind of unwind that through the course of the season. So you're supposed to think she has this perfect life and this perfect aspirational house. So, I mean, they got you a little, but I think that's okay. I think that you're investing in the show. You're on the journey.
And so many of the shots in that house are brutal, right? Ultimately culminating in the end when Perry and Celeste have that, when Perry really, really abuses her. It's really terrible, but it's shot from outside the room and you're looking at the house and there are shots of the children playing, and it really drives it home.
There's so many harsh angles in that house, and they really they amplify them with the way it's shot. It feels spare in that house, even though it's not. But just the way, that's how I feel about it. Sorry,
I'm questioning my choice.
It's also like really interesting in comparison to Renata's home, which I think those are kind of the two most similar, where they both have a lot of glass and they both are super high end. But Renata's, the way that one is shot is much more like triangular to me, and part of that's with the ceiling and the main room versus the very like square and rectangular spaces of Perry and Celeste.
My thing about Renata's house is that I can't figure out like where the actual living space is, because I don't know where the bedrooms are, the bathroom. There is just that one amazing great room that opens out to the pool where the birthday party happens and the famous "thank you" meme. The most important parts of Big Little Lies. Thank you. I'll do it as many times as I have to, but I haven't figured out like where the kitchen is.
Well, Renata's house, you may not take a nap. It's like too much light. It's almost like, please, let's get some blackout curtains going in here. And the ocean is, I think, in some ways the most prevalent in that one.
Yes.
Wait, so which is your favorite?
This is kind of weird, but I think that like style-wise, aesthetically, I love Bonnie and Nathan's house. Like, just love it.
It's beautiful.
But who can say no to the beachfront of Madeline's house?
Yeah.
Yes.
And also, her kitchen is just made for hanging out.
Yes.
And ultimately, people like to hang out in the kitchen, and especially if like you're playing tunes like they do in that home, it's just great for that. So I feel like practical living, I would choose Madeline's house, but for Bonnie and Nathan, that's sort of like, it's very A Star Is Born to me. That's sort of like
That 70s, all
canyon
wood,
living, a lot of
boho.
wood. Yeah,
I did
exactly.
spend the first, 20 minutes of that scene in A Star Is Born trying to figure out whether it was the same house.
Yeah.
It's not actually. It's
Same
a different-
neighborhood,
It
though.
is the same neighborhood and has the same vibe. I'm with you. Well, I'm sort of with you. Madeline's house is my favorite. And not just because she's my favorite character, but also because I would like to, I don't want to have to get in a car to go to the beach.
Yeah.
I would like it for it to be there and you can just walk.
I see, as opposed to being like on the bluff or sort of overlooking.
Yeah, the views
ocean.
are obviously much nicer, and I think like Madeline's is probably I think in real life it costs millions of dollars, which we can talk about, but in the context of the show, it's kind of supposed to be the middle tier.
Yeah.
And so I understand wanting the people who are up above looking down on the ocean. I get the symbolism. I get it,
Yeah,
visual
totally.
symbolism, but I would like to just be, I'd like to have water access.
Yet again, I feel terrible for I chose the House of Horrors with the sharp angles that looks down on the villagers.
Maybe you have the most progressive view of architecture. Who knows? The biggest problem with Madeline's house to me is the island is just way too big. She gave
so big.
Gave too much space to that. No one needs an island
Well,
that
they eat
big.
around it, which is not.
That's not what an island's for.
That's not what an island's for. Thank you.
It's for hanging. It's not for sitting down
for
for a meal.
arguing.
Okay,
usually.
well,
Yeah.
I think there are some rifts in the family, so maybe they won't eat around it in season 2. Maybe
Right.
they'll move on.
Good point.
I do want to talk a little bit about Monterey as also a character in the show, because as Mina and I were discussing, the book is not set in Monterey, the book is set in Australia, so they had to make a choice to set it there. Not all of these houses in real life are in Monterey, by the way, just so you know. Most of them are in Los Angeles, a couple in Malibu, one in Pasadena, one in Topanga.
Yes.
That's the one that you like.
That's the Bonnie and Nathan
Yeah.
house, and that's like overlooking the beach, basically.
Right. But most of the exteriors are shot in Monterey,
Yeah.
including that famous bridge. And do you guys have any experience with Monterey? Thoughts?
Monterey is like, it's right next to Carmel, which is super fancy. So I feel like picking Monterey is sort of like picking Brooklyn instead of Manhattan, basically.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like slightly more culture and a little bit more like bohemian. And I feel like could accommodate both the Renatas and the Bonnies of the world, basically. Like there is that spectrum. I just feel like Clint Eastwood is so closely associated with Carmel and Carmel by the Sea that like you couldn't like pick
Right.
his hometown. That would be where he was like the mayor. That would be.
He was the mayor?
Yeah, I believe he was the mayor of Carmel.
I've been to Monterey once. I was 8. I was on a field trip, and I thought sea lions were dogs.
They're not even sea lions. Aren't they sea otters? Or do they have both?
I don't even.
The ones that bark. Clint
well, the
Eastwood is
otters-
the mayor. Sea lions are not sea lions.
That could be wrong. The sea otters are like the defining thing. The aquarium is like the defining thing in Monterey.
Oh, that's right, of course.
And John Steinbeck, where there's a cannery row.
Right.
Like right on the beach.
The
for him.
aquarium is in the season 2 trailer, so perhaps something will be happening there. I think that's where the makeout happens.
I guess do rich people who work in Silicon Valley live in Monterey as
Definitely
is implied
not.
by the show?
Okay, well,
gonna say,
in the
it's kinda
show
far.
they do. I guess
Right,
it's
super
yeah,
far.
it's really
I mean,
far,
Maybe they have a
yeah.
second home there, but it's like you can't commute.
I mean, Renata seems to, and I do have some questions about her time management, and every time she's like, I got to go to a board meeting, because I agree, it does
Yeah.
seem very far away, but it does also seem like they picked Monterey in order to be able to pull on the Silicon Valley
Right.
stereotype while also being able to mix types of people, as Juliet said.
Yeah, also the Central Coast, where that is, like Northern California, Central Coast, is very cloudy and kind of feels sleepy in a way that Los Angeles and Southern California and Malibu don't, because there's just generally more sun here. And I feel like that cloudiness lends itself well to like
To
this
the palette of
Yeah,
the
and like the
show.
scenes where they're sitting outside of the cafe and on the wharf and everything.
I think it's also necessary that they're in a small town because they clearly have nothing else to do
That's
other
a
than
great point.
snipe at each other and
Yeah.
get in petty beefs.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right. This has been very educational. Juliet, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So this is a preview show, which means we're talking about what's coming next. It's one step ahead. We've got a lot of questions, maybe some predictions for season 2. I don't know. I have a list. I'm going to go through them. You feel free to speak on whatever is your truth. Okay.
Okay.
My first question, and this is the big one. This is probably the central, or one of the central questions for season 2 is, will the Monterey Five get caught?
That is the tension of the season. I'm inclined to believe at least some of them will get caught. I can't imagine they clean, like, oh yes, Big Little Lies season 2. They get away with it. Nothing, no one ever figures anything out.
Exactly. It would be unsatisfying television. It's just like, well, there they go. And that was kind of this season 1.
Right.
That's how you can justify season 2. It's like, well, we have some things to address here.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Number 2. Why did Bonnie do it?
Well, I don't know, and we don't totally know, besides the
Yes.
basic instinct that she's a good person and she wants to help. So I think that is one of the other major questions that the season has to
And by
answer.
do it, we mean push him, but you know, there's no evidence that she was trying to kill him or that she had any idea, you know, what exactly had transpired. All she saw probably was that he was being fought by all of the women, which, by the way, it's such an incredible scene. That final scene when they're fighting, the way it's shot is really harrowing and it's quick, but also just the visual of, wow, it takes 4 women to fight off this man. These women have to come together, and they still can't even do it.
Right.
Really.
And I think that they'll be working through that and that experience throughout the season, which sets up, we've talked about this, but my next question is, how will Celeste cope?
So in season 1, there are references to her having anxiety, you know, miscarriages and whatnot. So that's kind of all we know about her psychology, I suppose. We have no idea how she's going to deal with the public aspect of this, which I think is going to be probably the most difficult part for her in some ways, in addition to kind of reckoning with who Perry was and the fact that he's still the father of her children. I think that's probably going to be her arc over the course of the season, is coming to terms with it.
The next question is similar, which is how will Jane cope? And I think what you just said is true. I mean, the circumstances of her situation are different, but she's just gotten the answer to something that has been haunting her for many years, and kind of her whole life order is rearranged at the end of season 1. So I think she will work through it. We don't know as much. She doesn't have kind of the therapy arc that Celeste does in season 1, so we'll see.
Also, will she still be dating the coffee shop guy, Tom?
I sure hope so. She deserves it.
Did you like him?
I thought that it was nice that he stood up for her. And I think it's a nice coffee shop. I would go there if I lived in Monterey. It's right on the water. I like the water.
He seems like the kind of guy who tweets at the New York Times, like complaining about headlines.
Can Jane catch a break?
Definitely has
That's
a rose emoji next to his name. Will MERYL break good?
This is one of my questions. I just think, so it is MERYL versus Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman and Laura Dern and Shailene Woodley and Zoe Kravitz, which is like, that's all I need to know about a TV show. But if you kind of think through the arc, at the end, they all need to win. They all kind of need to win. And also, why is Meryl Streep gonna take a role on a TV show? It's because she's got to have something fun to do. So I don't know. I think that by the end there will be some sort of resolution, if I had to guess, if I were a betting person.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine if she finds out everything her son did, she's not gonna be like, oh, well, I still, you know, am siding with him 100%. But I imagine there's gonna be some tension.
I guess we'll find out. The next one: do the kids know about their parents? And I think by the kids, I mean Ziggy, Max, and Josh, who are the twins.
We haven't really talked about the kids much. And they do play a pretty big
they do.
in this
Sorry,
show.
kids.
Yeah, I mean, Chloe, the absurdly precocious when it comes to her music. She kind of ruined Leon Bridges for me the way Garden State ruined the Shins. Like, every time I hear Leon Bridges now, I'm just like, no. So she's, you know, fine.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's about Ziggy. He was so inquisitive about trying to find out who his father was in the first season. Now Jane knows. Will she keep that from him? I imagine they will find out at some, or there'll be some sort of, I guess, discussion
I mean, I think
about it.
You would think that they have to tell them, but obviously Jane hasn't told Ziggy anything for 6 years, so who knows?
Okay. By the way, I didn't know that Ziggy was a young Sheldon until I went
there
down a
we go.
weird
We're
Instagram
learning a lot about TV
rabbit
today.
hole. I was like, why does Ziggy have 300,000 Instagram followers? Will Ed forgive Madeline?
So my short answer to this is like probably yes, but it'll take a while. I think ultimately, in season 1, certainly he's a pushover, which is kind of what justifies, what makes you not totally hate Madeline for doing what she did.
He's a little bit of a weenie, and he has a standing desk in their house.
But maybe justice for Ed in season 2, moderate justice for Ed, equality for Ed in season 2.
He's a wonderful husband.
He is. Okay. Here's the next one. I am very curious about this one. Will Renata rat out the Monterey 4 in this? They are 5, but if she rats them out, then it's 4.
Yes, I think so in some way, because there's very little to connect her to the rest of the group other than the fact that she was involved or at least witness to the murder. And I think that's going to be a source of tension, because otherwise there's no tension, right? I mean, the bullying
Exactly.
thing's gone. There's no other reason for her to be in contact with
And
them.
they've established her as very aware of her appearance. I mean, all these women are very aware about their appearance. It's kind of a major theme of the show. But I think she will be nervous about the association and what it does to like her position on the eBay board or whatever. Yeah, I'm just
You
saying.
hate her so much.
I don't hate her. I love her. I'm just kind of like, you know, she's very. She leads with her ambitions.
We have
I'm just
no
like,
idea
settle.
what she does other than yelling on the phone, sell all the options or whatever.
Right. How does she get to San Francisco so
so-
quickly? No. I'm going to ask you this one. Okay, this question is for Mina. Why are there no pets in Monterey?
Just to open the kimono a little bit, this question was my only contribution to the document for this show. And I wrote, thank you in all caps to make sure we asked it. It's a great question, okay? We are talking about rich, mostly white people. Where are the dogs?
It's a great question. We'll find
For a
out.
show that
maybe.
pays so much attention to detail, it's a little weird.
Okay.
How is the community, this is a very you question, how is the community theater doing?
I'm guessing not well. I'm guessing that they're going to need to do an internal investigation. And I think that, you know, maybe everyone should take a break, work on their personal issues, and then they can come back to work and be professional. Just my take.
Will we get another production, and what would be the funniest show for them to put on?
I mean, it's hard to top puppets who are...
Bopping.
I mean, I suppose
Boning.
you'd have to do Hamilton, and it's just like a really bad production of Hamilton with the children. The children are in Hamilton. Okay.
Oh, that's really good.
All right, here we go. What kind of music is Chloe into in the second grade? I wrote this one for you.
I hate this so much. Oh, I don't know.
She has a passion. She's young and she likes music.
She's a second grader and probably thinks Billie Eilish is too mainstream.
Okay, well, maybe she is.
So, once again, for a show that is extremely realistic, it's like a one false note for me. So,
Okay.
that's my objection. Final question. What does the rest of the town know?
Yeah, this seems like an interesting one, right? Because pretty much everyone in Monterey, or at least all the parents at the elementary school who are the world that these women are operating in, were definitely at the event and are also really nosy. The entire first
so
season is a
nosy.
framing device where there are various people just
Yes.
saying really rude, catty things about these women. So that seems like a major problem if you are a group of 5 people trying to keep a pretty obvious secret.
By the way, we've been talking about which character would you be? The truth is, I would be one of the Greek chorus of townspeople being like, he is a lot older than her. Like, I hope they continue that framing device because it's really funny and it kind of lightens the tone.
Yeah,
of
and
the
it gives
show.
you a sense of this world and that it's not just these women who are a little vicious with each other, it's everybody.
It's everyone.
Yeah,
Especially
so-
the dude, that one guy. So funny.
And the principal, honestly, while we're at it.
I love the principal.
Maybe we need a new school
Who
administration while we're
claims to
at
have
it.
invented the term helicopter parent. That's
Okay.
the most upsetting thing.
All right. We will hopefully find out all the answers to these questions and many more with season 2. Thank you for watching. This has been Big Little Live in partnership with Buick. We will be back on Sunday after episode 1. We hope you will join us. See you Sunday.
Always on the high, you were always on my mind, dear Wichita. The days we were told would never grow old here in Wichita. We were down.